For this second exercise, we're going to extend the time class and add a method equals so that we can compare two time objects. That's something we will want to do probably with some use of the class. So to create an equals method, we start out first, we make it public. It's a Boolean method because we want it to return true or false, and we're going to call it equals. Its argument will be a time object, which we're going to call T1, because we're going to pass in a time object to compare to the current object. Now there's two ways to implement this method. One way would be to compare each part of the time, hours, minutes, seconds, but that doesn't give a good indication. And what we need to do instead is convert each time object into seconds and then compare those two numbers to see if they're the same or not. So to do that, we're going to create two variables. The first one we're going to call t seconds, and it's going to work with the current object. It's going to convert the hours to seconds, then convert the minutes to seconds, adding it to the hours that have been converted, and then adding the seconds. Then we want to create a second object, which we'll call T1 seconds, and that's going to take T1's hours times 60 times 60, plus T1's minutes times 60, plus T1's seconds. T1 being the parameter or argument that we're passing in. Then all we have to do is compare. If t seconds is equal to T1 seconds, return true, else return false. That should be all we need. So come back to our DOS window, clear the screen, compile the time class first, so that's javac time.java. Then we're ready to build a test program. Here's one I tested earlier. Let's start it over again. So we're going to say time, the time equals new time 900. And then we'll say time, a time equals new time 910. So then to compare them, we can simply say if the time equals a time, system out print line, the same time, else system out print line, different time. So let's compile this program. Javac chap 12 part 7 .java, and then Java chap 12 part 7, different time, as we expected. Let's change it. We'll change that 1 to a 0. Save the program. Come back to our DOS window. Let's clear the screen. Compile again, and then run. Oops. Make sure we save the program. Make sure they are indeed the same. Let's go back and look at our code. Make sure we put T1 in. There it is right here. Okay, those are right. Come back to our DOS window. Compile it again. I see the problem. I have two chapters 12 part 7 files open. I'm going to close them both. Open it from scratch. Save it. Compile it from scratch. First, we better make sure we've compiled the time class. That's not the issue, but just to make sure. Now we'll compile our test program again. Chapter 12, part 7.java. And then run it. And we still get different time. Let's go back and look at our program one more time. Checking that hours, T1 minutes plus T1 seconds, hours. When you have a problem like this, the next thing you're going to do, this is probably a good time to talk about debugging programs, is put a print statement somewhere in your program, and I always write debug in my print statement. And then we're going to print T seconds, and then T1 seconds, like so. Okay, let's save it. Then compile the class, compile the test program again, then run the test program. And by doing that, we seem to have fixed the problem, which I can't see what the problem exactly was, which is kind of crazy. So let's take our debug statement out, save the file, clear the screen, compile the class again, compile the test program again, and now it's working. Sometimes crazy things like that happen. I'm sure it had something to do with having multiple files open at the same time, because I haven't changed anything else in the program. Here's the time class. There's the program itself, and they should be the same time. Let's try one more thing. Let's make it go off a little bit this time. And that's right, they're off by a second. If we went back and put that debug statement in, we'd see that one time is greater by 1 second. So aside from the mystery error in logic someplace, which was probably nothing to do with our code, but a lot to do with me trying to manage files, you can see how to write a method to compare two objects. Again, what we have to do is we have to get the basis for the comparison correct. And that's why taking everything into seconds makes the most sense for time. For some other object, it might be as well just to look at the constituent parts or compare the data members. But for this particular class, it made more sense to convert the time to seconds and then do the comparison. That wraps up this discussion on object-oriented programming, at least this overview or this second overview. Now we're ready to move to the next chapter where we take object-oriented programming to the next level, so to speak, and look at inheritance, where we can create a class that has many of the same characteristics with another class and yet differs in some way, and we don't have to write a completely separate set of code for the inherited class. We only have to write code that's different between the base class and the inherited class. And we're going to see how to do that in the next chapter.